think the world of men's personal development needs to be simplified massively, because there's two reasons that I think it's complicated. It's either complicated because the practitioners of it don't know it well enough to be able to explain it simply, or it's from some need to overcomplicate it so we can justify the sort of fees that can be involved. And it needs to be simplified because it's too important to be sacrificed to either of those reasons, whether it be in that there's some egoic way that because I understand it, I'm then therefore going to make it seem much more convoluted and much more complicated because it makes me look more intelligent, or if it's simply because I don't really know it that well, so I'm going to hide it behind bluff and blunder. The result of good men's personal development that it can have on a man, on his family, on his communities, and on the world at large is too important to be hidden behind something for those reasons. Whether that be a financial gain reason, or an egoic reason, or just not wanting to admit a simple reason. And when I say it's simple and it needs to be simplified, that's not saying that it's easy. The work, as we call it, is very, very difficult, and it can take a very, very long time, and it takes a lot of effort. The bit that should be simplified is the sequences, is the concepts, is the basic foundations of men's personal development. What works is simple. Building community, for example, clear communication, understanding how the beliefs I've made up in the past, what we call shadow, how they affect how I see the world now, which we call schema. Understanding those sorts of things, they're simple to understand. They're simple to grasp when they're explained simply. And then it becomes a thing of implementation, and that's very different. It's okay for something to be difficult to implement. Most of the most valuable things in life are difficult to implement, like working out, like eating well. But let's not make the foundations difficult. We do that too much with things like diet and stuff, right? You can do a Google search today and you'll find millions and millions and millions of diet books, right? And all they're really saying is fucking stop eating crap and go out for a run once in a while, right? And I would like to see that same approach of simplicity to men's personal development. You're lonely, go and create community. You're not getting what you want, learn to communicate clearer. You're not hearing people properly, learn to listen. You want more? Serve more. They're simple. It can be very simple. And it needs to be simple because when it is simple, then it's effective. And then people have a choice whether they want to implement it. But at the moment, you could just, if you were a man just interested in men's personal development and you'd done a Google search, you would find tons and tons and tons of different places to go, different theories, different approaches, different styles. And they're all really, really valuable. I'm not saying that any of these things are better or worse than anything else. But if you're a man approaching it for the first time, it can be a little daunting. And you can waste a lot of time and a lot of money trying things out until you find what works for you. Whereas I think you can cluster all that stuff down to a very few disciplines, a very few ideas, and a very few key pieces of information that you need to understand, and a sequence in which they work. And I think that's the bit that needs to be presented simply, not to be presented as some sort of program or something, but be presented as a sort of roadmap where you can kind of go, yeah, I understand that. Oh, I want to learn a bit about that. Oh, I see why that's important, At the moment, you have to go off and read all the books by everyone, which is basically what I've done over the last 20 years, to try and then piece that together and take out, that's the key bit of action I need to take around that. That's the key bit of knowledge I need from that. And this is the key bit of how I implement that. And that's the bit that we really, really need to simplify, purely because it excludes so many men. Because it's like looking at the biggest menu in the world and going, what do I eat? And as we know, the better the restaurant, the simpler the menu. And I think that's the same with men's personal development. Actually, if you're looking at someone's site and it's really complicated and it looks like you need a science degree or a philosophy degree to understand it, or you need to have read every myth that's ever been out there, I question the quality of that information, because good teachers make it simple. And so we need to keep simplifying, creating the simple messages, putting the simple messages out there, putting the simple actions that men have to take out there, because it's too valuable. Because if another man has to live a life of misery, it's too high a price that's been paid for my ego that wants people to think that I'm intelligent and brilliant. You know, I just want people to think that guy has some information that helps. And anyone who has some information that helps, let's just share it in the simplest way, you know, because then we reach the most people and then we have a better world. So it really needs to be simplified. You know, the days of overcomplicated menus are done, because there's too many people that need feeding for us to worry about a complicated menu.
I'm focused. I've been watching for the omens. I've been listening to everything you said. It's been running through my head, locked and loaded. I got the feeling that you know it. Yeah, I've only just begun. I won't stop until it's done, till you broke.